Thank you, Father Borello, Father Becker, Reverend Fathers, our holy, virtuous business leaders, any other honored guests, and my dear brothers. 3 weeks before I entered St. John Vianney Seminary, my mom and I were on a trip down to Sioux Falls so that I can get reconstructed gum surgery. Long story. But while we're driving, I'm about to enter college, and we were having a deep conversation. And she asked me a little bit about, a little deeper knowledge into why I wanted to go to seminary. And I told her, and at the end of it, she turned to me and said, "Zach, a week before you were born, the reading at Mass was the reading of Hannah and the child Samuel, her firstborn son, and how she had dedicated him to the Lord." And she looked at me and she said, "I felt like I was giving you to the Lord." And brothers, that summed up the previous 4 years of my life right there in a small conversation with my mother. So flashback to my 8th grade year, a counselor from one of our youth camps had challenged me to do a weekly rosary. By doing that, he meant do a decade of the rosary Monday through Friday, and you get yourself a weekly rosary. And just told me to pray it. And I did. And one day my dad, going into my freshman year of high school, came up to me and asked if I wanted to attend Catholic school, which would require moving to a completely different town, him getting a new job, starting a whole new life. And my response was, I was afraid. I didn't want to have him go through all of that just to get me to a Catholic school system. And he told me, "You know what, just go pray about it." And I took it to this rosary, and it was the first time I ever entrusted everything in my life to the Blessed Mother and to Jesus Christ. And lo and behold, after these weeks of prayers, we moved to Aberdeen, which eventually changed my life forever. Going into my sophomore year of high school, I attended this youth camp called Discipleship Camp, which we have in Sioux Falls, as you've heard many of us talk about. And in that camp, I was just kind of struggling with my identity, kind of with Catholicism in general. Just didn't know if this was legit. And I decided to take it seriously. All the things they challenged us to do, all the daily prayer, the commitment to prayer, I said, "You know what? I'll give this a couple weeks and we'll see what this does. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then I can give up." So I started praying, and 3 weeks later, a friend of mine from this camp came up to visit me. And like good teenage boys one night, we decided to play Call of Duty until the wee hours of the night. I will not say how long due to formation. But throughout the entire time of the video gaming, we were talking about Catholicism, and I was burning. I had all these questions and no answers, and he was in the same boat. We were just going back and forth, laughing, having a good time, really diving into these questions. And in the end of it, he went to sleep, but my heart was on fire. I couldn't go to sleep, and so I flipped on TV, watched some ESPN. It was the Cubs versus the Cardinals. I remember the highlight being played at that point. And as I was sitting there listening, everything went silent around me. The TV, the fan, the AC, I couldn't hear a thing, but I wasn't going to sleep. And instantly this warm peace blanketed me, and this crystal clear voice, it was a female voice, said, "Zachary." And everything came back into, reality. And the first words I said, which I do not regret, even though at the time I did, was, "Here I am, what do you want?" And my dad's always taught me growing up that if anything supernatural happens, you always take it to a priest or someone that you can trust with your spiritual life. And for weeks I had forgot to bring it up to the priest of our parish. And eventually I brought it up to my youth group director, who I thought, you know what, if anyone I can trust, it's him. And told him everything that had happened, just like I told you. And he looks at me, kicks back in his chair, nods his head, and says, "Zach, I think it's Mother Mary calling you to serve at the altar." And sophomore Zach was not having it. I was freaking out. Said this couldn't be, but it was hitting something inside of me. And he said, "Don't worry, just go take it to prayer. Just chillax. See why the Lord had you bring it up tonight." So I went and prayed, nothing in prayer. I came back and we had a guest speaker that night. and the now Deacon Brian Eckrich showed up as a first-year seminarian and said, I'm here today to talk to you guys, specifically the guys, about a vocation to the priesthood and what seminary life is like. And I kid you not, I about fainted on the spot. But in my prayer that night at youth group was, all right, Lord, if this is what you're calling me to, I'm giving my all. So sophomore year was that. It was growing. It was asking those deep questions. It was really trying to persevere a little more in prayer, develop habits, figure out what Catholicism really was, figure out who the Eucharist was. That was something that always tugged at my heart. And I went to Mass more with some of my youth group friends. So it was a growing year. Eventually, summer came, doubts came, kind of about this calling, and I went into that D camp again. And at adoration, my heart just was thinking, Lord, I want to know, what is it that you want me to do? So I went and got prayed with, asked them that question to pray. I want to know what my future holds. And after about 15 minutes, the guy kind of kneels down beside me and says, the Lord doesn't want you to know yet. Just trust him. I'm frustrated. I walked down back to where adoration was happening, and immediately I took out the book, To Save 1,000 Souls, which you've all heard of, and I looked at the front cover, and it's the priest extending his hands in the orans position over the people. And I looked up at the monstrance. I started crying for 25 minutes. Tears of joy just in my heart, signaling this confirmation to be his priest. And I took that with me, and we know the fruits, we know it was the Lord's voice by the fruits that come from it, by the peace and the joy. And all of junior year was that. I experienced, for the first time, the love of God almost every single day in my life in a very profound way. I was joyful. I felt a freedom, free from most sins. I really delved into the Eucharist. Mother Mary had introduced me to a whole new aspect of her love, and she was the one that really pointed me to going to Mass. I went to Mass every single day. Before high school, I was able to have the opportunity. I started altar serving again. I just gave myself over to the Lord. And one of the things that kind of culminated was this idea of celibacy. It's a weird one, right? And I didn't grapple with it. And at this dance, one of our winter formals, my friends were all dancing with their dates, but I was there, but I wasn't saddened, nor was I, disheartened. But I looked at them, smiled, and I looked up at the crucifix in the dance room, and all I could hear Jesus saying was, "It's okay, you're going to be my priest." And there was this intense peace and joy with that. And I was okay with that. So junior year finished out. A lot of other graces I'd like to give into, but I can't at the moment due to time. Senior year was kind of rough. The discern out girl showed up in my life. It's not nothing against her. We never dated because on one of our first conversations, she asked what I wanted to do for college, and I said, I'm going to go study philosophy to be a Catholic priest, and realized, shoot, what did I do? But senior year was a struggle. It was a really test from the Lord to really give in more to his love without the feelings, without the external, I don't know what you want to call it, emotions. But I got through it. And up to this point, I've told you that conversation with my mother, and that was such a key thing going into seminary because it reminded me that it was Mother Mary who brought me to Aberdeen, who gave me my calling, and who continues to still work in my life. And since being at seminary, my main focus has been growing in love with the Lord, and in doing so, I have grown so much more deeper in love with the priesthood. He has reconfirmed my call several times, even in times of extreme doubt. And Mother Mary has been there by my side. And I was asked to give you guys a particular example of that, so that way, hopefully, you guys can also experience Mother Mary's love by giving over to her as well. One day I was thinking, what was it like to be in St. John the Beloved's shoes with Mother Mary after the crucifixion, after Pentecost? And I could picture myself in Ephesus. The image that came up immediately in this holy hour, Mother Mary was there right in front of me, and I was standing there looking at her, and her smile comes up a lot in prayer for me. And her eyes are gazing into my eyes, and she's vesting me, I found out. But I don't remember anything except her putting the amice on and the stole on. For those of you who don't know, the amice is the neck, thing that goes around the priest's neck, and the stole is what the priest wears as a sign of his priesthood. And for a week I sat with that. It wasn't anything profound until Rome this last semester, when things were dark, deep, and heavy, as Rome is, spiritually. And I sat there, and one day I just cried. I was like, Mom, I need something. And she revealed to me, she said, Zach, the amice and the stole. The amice means the helmet of salvation. I'm there to guard you and to protect you. But I'm also wrapping you up like a young child in swaddling clothes, holding you like a child. And then when you be ordained, I'm going to wrap you in burial cloths like I did my own son, because as a priest you were called to die. And then she said, because of the stole, immortality, I'm going to drag you along into eternal life. And I'm going to drag you through seminary. It's the way she put it, because I was being brutally honest. Drag you to seminary, and you'll be a priest for me, and a priest for my son. So, I'll close with this. Jesus, I am your future priest. I am a beloved son of your handmaid. I've come to do your will. Let it be done unto me according to thy word. With you and with her, I will save souls. Praise be Jesus Christ.